probably like I would put the Leafs goalie position in there too. It's hard to be under the microscope when you make mistakes in markets like these. It really
Yeah, but
is.
look, you're comparing the Habs who had Patrick Waugh.
Well, there you
They
go.
had, well, no,
Yeah.
I was saying then they had Theodore won MVP. I think he won MVP.
Yeah, he won
Then
MVP,
then
but
you
he never
then you
traded.
go
Even
into Price.
Halak
No,
carried
but
them in the playoffs a couple
my
rounds.
point is those are big shoes to fill. Here we're just looking for someone who can wear shoes, right? So it's
Yeah.
two different. It's two different. It's apples and oranges.
Hi, and welcome to the show. This week, we discuss some current happenings in the NHL, including Carey Price addressing the media about his health, some LTIR moves by the Toronto Maple Leafs adding cap space for potential moves to bolster their lineup, as well as some discussions about the Canucks' slow start and other injury news around the league. Will Price ever play again, or has he already played his last hockey game? Will the Leafs sacrifice their remaining prospects and picks to get better now? Will the Canucks cut bait on their coach, or will they stand pat and turn the ship around? And lastly, will Ottawa be able to fight through a key long-term injury with their remaining roster? Our four Fanatics will tackle all of this and more this week. So please, take a load off, relax, and welcome to Hockey for Fanatics. Okay, so on the list for what we're going to talk about today, again, no particular order. You guys can add, but I put this on the Discord. I have the price presser,
Okay.
the Leaf LTIR moves, and then I guess we can talk
Okay.
about LTIR moves and potential trades, right? I guess we can put that there. We can probably go off on that subject. I also have the Josh Norris injury for Ottawa, and I guess with injuries we can also talk about Marchand returning tonight. So I'll just put that sort of in the injuries bucket. And
If it was
then
Friday 13th, it would have been the perfect timing.
nice,
Mhm.
you and your
The boogeyman.
Friday the 13th. But either way, does
Cool.
that sound good for the for what we're gonna
Yeah.
talk about? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so first on the list we have Carey Price press conference. I have some notes here. Let me just read them, and then we can take it from there. So basically, Price said, "We'll take it step by step. Don't have a plan to retire at this moment." I'm going to paraphrase so that I don't read the entire thing. He says, "My goal is to be pain free. Still having issues going up and down stairs. So basically, his first priority is to get his body to a place where he's pain free." He says he's not contemplating surgery at the moment. He feels like it's a little worrisome for him. And he went into some details about what that surgery is, which we can talk about after. And then he says he's spoken to people that have had a similar injury, and it could take a full year to heal. So he's still hopeful that he can still return to play, but it's like he said, he cannot train right now, so that's not in the cards in the immediate future. And then he talked a little bit about his struggles last year when he admitted himself to the NHL substance abuse program. And he basically went on record saying that it was because of alcohol. And one of the quotes for him said, and it really hit home for me when I heard him say this. He said, being on the 18th hole of his career, he wasn't a happy person or a good father. Um, after he lost in the finals, and he said, I was drinking a lot. I just got to a point where I was like, I'm not even having any fun doing this. Like, what am I doing? I feel like I was just getting to a point in my life where I had to make a decision. So obviously, he went through a really dark time um, personally because obviously he really wanted to win badly. It didn't go his way. I don't know if those problems existed prior to that. But anyway, there's a whole lot to unpack here in this press conference. So who wants to go first on this one? Because I have a lot to say, but I'd prefer one of you guys to give me a sort of a neutral perspective on this first.
For me, the only thing about him is I think I don't know if I don't believe that he'll be back. I have it in my gut that tells me that he's done. Not that he can't come back, but I think it's mentally and physically. I don't know. And he's going to be coming back to a Habs team that isn't anywhere ready to win. I know Dave thinks that they're going to win the cup this year, but if we're realistically talking, I mean, they shouldn't even be in a playoff spot. And they probably will be like that next year too. And then, I mean, how old is he now? 37, 38?
No,
Or
no,
is he younger than that?
no, he's a little younger than that. I think he's like 35, I think. Didn't he just turn 35?
35. So, I mean, I know that goalies can tend to last a bit longer than players, but I don't know. For me, I just don't see it. I think that if he comes back at this point, it's almost like he would have to ask for a trade and maybe move on, because I just don't know what he would bring to the table for Montreal. I really don't.
I don't know, but guys, I don't know what to say about Carey Price. I mean, there's been so many different stories you hear and rumors, and did you guys? I mean, I think it was Mike. Did you say he needed surgery? But he hasn't had surgery, and he's not sure if he
Well,
wants surgery.
well, okay. So let me just clarify, just so because I know you guys
Yeah,
aren't as
please.
versed. So he did get surgery after the playoffs. So after they lost to Tampa, he did get surgery on his knee. Okay. So, uh, and again, I don't know the exact surgery that he got, but he did get surgery. And then he missed the entire following year, as you're aware, and he came back with like 5 games to go. So he did get a surgery, and he came back, but it's sounding like he came back essentially not 100%, like he wasn't ready to go, but he played the last 5 games or whatever that he played, and he's still not happy with the way his knee is holding up, and it was swelling on him basically after any activity. So, now he's reluctant to get an additional surgery to potentially uh, change things.
I don't know. Like, I'm very skeptical of the whole situation. Like, one, it's the Habs, so I don't really care too much. So I don't know. It's just
But okay, but hold
it's
on.
such a weird
Do you
situation,
think
right?
do you
Because
think he's done, or do you think he'll be back?
it doesn't make any sense for him to come back at this point, right? Because he was already deteriorating as it is, and it just doesn't make sense. Just if you have a surgery that could potentially bring you back into play, why wouldn't you take that? Okay, so obviously the risks are significant, right?
Yeah,
Does the risks include, there's got to be something that's going to scare you away. When it comes down to knee surgeries, like I just don't see, like, if you're talking a spinal cord injury, like even Jack Eichel when he had the surgery with his neck, uh, there's extreme risk involved with that surgery, especially since it was a very rare surgery and it wasn't done on many athletes before. But he was like adamant about doing it because he was just so focused on getting back on the ice. Obviously, Price's priorities are different at this point of his lifetime, right?
right.
He's worried more about his day to day and just getting back to being functional and being able to carry his kids up and down the stairs. I believe he even said that.
Yep.
And I think that's what's important for him. And I don't. I think you need to know the specifics with the surgery. What is he so afraid of? Because is the surgery going to prevent him from, like, is there a chance to make him even worse off? Because that to me is the only reason why you would even think about not doing it, right? But I think there's more to the story. I think in his mind, I think he's played a lot of hockey, and physically, mentally, I think he's done. And I think if he really, really wanted to come back, it would be a different story. So I don't know.
I
That's
see.
just my take on it.
Well, I mean, I have another theory that, and again, I have no, I just think that he will be back. And the fact that like, I know that the odds are against this because every single media outlet that I've heard and every single Montreal reporter is basically saying that, oh, he's played his last game. So long, Carey. You did great, Carey. We're gonna miss you, Carey. They're talking more about jersey retirements than him potentially playing. I don't know why, but I have this feeling that this retool, or like, it's a rebuild that Montreal's going through, but it's gonna be a really quick rebuild because I think I'm gonna disagree with what Giancarlo said, and I think this team is going to be ready to contend for a playoff spot. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs next year, but I'm going to go on record to say that they are going to attempt to contend for a playoff spot next year. So this year for sure is a write-off year. This isn't, like I said in many podcasts before this one, this is their pivotal year where they got that one more chance to get another, if they're lucky, top five pick, get another great player that's going to fit in their top three potentially, and then next year Carey Price comes back, they're going to go and sign a big UFA, and I think they're going to make a trade as well. And then that team is going to be completely different next year. They have a ton of assets in the cupboard. So, and not all of them are going to be playing on this team. There's no doubt about it. Like, it's impossible. You just cannot fit all of these assets in the lineup. And I just have a feeling that they're gonna make some noise next year. So this is gonna line up with Carey coming back. And if you're gonna make me bet on, and I'm not a betting man, but if you're gonna make me bet whether he would be back, I think Carey Price will be playing for the Canadians next year. I do.
You know what's funny? I guess time heals all wounds, huh? Because correct me if I'm wrong. Before the Leaf series in the playoffs, a majority of Montreal fans, including one I know very well, who happens to be in
Are
this
you call Are
podcast,
you calling me
and a
out?
lot of media said that he was done. Like Carey Price was done. He was washed. He was done. He's got nothing left. And this was before
Well, I never said
he
that.
left.
I never said
Oh
that.
no, you did.
Well,
Remember,
Prove
I
it.
so
argued
I'm
with you,
I'm
and I
harsh.
sent you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember I sent you specifics. I'm like, what? He's a good playoff performer. And I was sending you like all of his record in the playoffs, and you're like, no, he's done. He's washed. He's got nothing. I'm like, what?
But I'm
He totally
yeah.
could come back and stand on his head against the Leafs.
Yeah, and he
And
did.
look,
And he
look what
did.
he did.
Yeah, you're right, he
Like,
did. And
I just find it funny,
well,
that all these fans are like, oh, please, I hope he comes back. But meanwhile, they like
let me
were
explain.
ready to throw him off the hill.
So
You
let
know what I
let
mean?
me
Like,
explain. I've seen Carey since the day he came into the league. And Carey Price is an amazing goaltender. He is. But he can't do it all because you need the team in front of you. So I don't care how good you are. So part of my criticism of Carey last year was a whole collective criticism of the team. So did he surprise me by standing on his head? Absolutely. Because and I remember the words I told you. He gave me no indication that he was going to turn his game around on a dime because he really wasn't playing lights out hockey as a number one goalie, as an all-star goalie that I had seen him be in the past. His game has not reached that level in a long time. So yeah, I definitely would have lost that bet if he would say, if I would have said, would he have reached that form? But my dissing wasn't more towards Carey. It was more around the team because I just didn't expect the team collectively to win. And that you really need everyone
no, for
firing on all
sure.
cylinders. But now, and
No, I'm
again,
just messing around with you.
oh, for sure, for
But
sure.
the thing is, like, in realistic terms, right? Why would you want why would you want him back? $10 million goaltender, like that's not an easy position to come back after 2 years of laying like a layoff. That's an extremely difficult thing for him to come back after a couple months. Never mind almost 2 full years. Like what?
It's
Like
true.
just
It's
you know
true.
what? It's just I don't know. Big picture thinking. You want a fresh scenario. You got all these up and coming talent, youngsters. They're all like starving. Hopefully, you're able to move like Monahan at the deadline, get rid of that garbage Dandanoff, like just get rid of a couple useless guys, even like Josh Anderson, like get rid of like some dead weight. And if you can get like a really nice pick next year, maybe you sign a Dubois, maybe like how been mentioning in previous podcasts. You guys are in great shape. Why do you want this
Well,
like
you
something from the past
it
in Price?
it
Like,
well,
I don't know,
it's
get a nice young goalie and work towards something better, I think.
well, I think
I don't
that
think Price would be ideal.
the fact that the organization has not made any decisions as far as their goaltending goes is part of the reason why I I do suspect Price is going to come back. And I know I'm the only one that has said this, okay? Like I said, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe next year comes and I'll be like, "Oh, he's retired and that's the end of it." But I'm trying to like deduce what I'm seeing here. And again, the organization has not made any decisions about goaltending. Jake
Hold
Allen
on, hold
is
on.
not a starting goalie.
Sorry
Yeah,
to interrupt you real quick. He's not retiring. Like that is 100%. He's not retiring
right.
because he's not throwing that money down the tube. Like he's going to just go on LTIR
Right,
if
right.
that's the thing. Retiring is
Sure,
not an
sure. But
option
either way, you're right. But the organization would know either way. So you got to have some type of succession planning for a guy if you do anticipate him not being back, right?
for sure.
So they haven't made any decisions on that, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm.
So that to me is like, huh, because if this team, and I do believe this team will be ready to compete next year for a playoff spot, not saying they're going to be contenders or anything, but they will try to make it the playoffs next year. I think you're going to need a goalie to do that. I don't think you're going to be able to do it with Jake Allen. So I don't know. That's
How long is he signed for?
Allen
They
signed.
just
Jake Allen?
re-signed him.
Yeah, they just extended him. I
Yeah, they
think.
just re-signed him. I think it was 2, 3 years.
Yeah, it was a couple years, but he's like a backup, right? Like he's not a starting goaltender. Not
He's a stopgap, right?
Yeah, not for a playoff team anyway. Like I like Jake
No.
Allen, but he's not a starting goalie. Like that, it's that simple, right? He's a good backup. Dave, you've said that before, right? He's a good backup.
Yeah, he's a solid backup. I mean, if they want to trade him at the deadline this year to a team, they can get a lot from.
And and,
But
and
I don't.
yeah,
I don't know. Like who do the Habs have in the minors? I think they have a couple guys, right?
they don't have much actually. Caden Primo is probably the closest to becoming an NHL goalie, and he hasn't performed well when he's been given the opportunity. And this is a much better team too. I know that they're still young and making mistakes in front of him, but he just hasn't looked
Hey,
good. So
you can have Freddie Anderson for free next year.
Nice.
yeah, well
No,
that's
it's true. I mean, listen, he's not a bad goalie. He's a starter. He's just another guy who's got injuries. But going back to Price, I mean, this goes back to how I started. I have no idea. Anything can happen with him. If I had to bet, I think he's coming back next year. But I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't.
It's only him. He's the only one that's going to be able. If you hear in a couple months he's going to go for that surgery, then that tells you all you need to know. If
Yeah.
he's having that surgery, then okay, there's a chance he's coming back.
yeah.
If you don't hear anything about the surgery, he's done.
But
Like
that's
that
yeah,
for
that
me
was
For
is pretty much
Montreal,
it.
for Montreal, it worked out perfect. This is the perfect year that this is going to happen,
well,
right?
that's
Because
another thing that I'm leaning towards too. Yeah, keep going.
yeah, I mean, this is the perfect year. If he's in net this year and he's healthy, Montreal's not a bottom five team. There is no way. So, I mean, I don't think they're too upset about it. I think he's got to take care of himself first. You know, the substance abuse problem he's had, his mental health issues. So, I think he's got to take care of himself first. And if his mindset is ready to play, he's going to play. As long
Yep.
as his knee's fine, if that's what it is, his knee, then I think he's going to play, and I don't see why he wouldn't. He's still, to me, a top 10 goalie when he's healthy. Even if he'll be 36 next year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I kind of see everything that Russo's saying, and I'm gonna side with him on all that. If he wants to come back, he'll be back. I don't personally see it. I can see them competing for a playoff spot. I don't disagree with that next year. But in terms of them not having goalies, like I don't know. I just kind of think they need to move on too in Montreal. Like they need to start looking at the future, whether that's exploring a trade, whether
Right,
that's
right.
signing a free agent. And they do have some really interesting goalie prospects who, yeah, they won't be ready by next year, but they got to be thinking that these guys might be their future, right? Because that's why they drafted them.
We're talking about goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens, Giancarlo. No offense to to any Pittsburgh Penguins fans listening to this, but when you become the goalie of the Montreal Canadiens, you better be ready, or you're in big trouble. So this isn't a
Fair
game.
enough.
This isn't a game, eh? Like, like,
We give them multiple chances before we send them off
yeah.
in
It's
Pittsburgh.
and I mean, honestly, I'm being honest. Like, it is probably like I would put the Leafs goalie position in there too. It's hard to be under the microscope when you make mistakes in markets like these. It really
yeah, but
is.
look, you're comparing the Habs who had Patrick Waugh.
Well, there you
They
go.
had, well, no,
Yeah.
I was saying then they had Theodore won MVP. I think he won MVP.
Yeah, he won
Then
MVP,
then
but
you,
he never
then you
took.
Even
go into
Halak.
Price.
Carey
but
did the playoffs a couple
my
rounds.
point is, those are big shoes to fill. Here, we're just looking for someone who can wear shoes, right? So it's
Yeah.
two different. It's two different. It's apples and oranges.
Someone that's capable.
Well, okay, Patrick are definitely big shoes to fill, but that's the job, man. Like you're
Oh, sorry. Before that, you got Dryden. So, but my point was that there's always that foundation that you've always had that you build around your goalie, and
well,
Carey Price is that guy, and it's not easy to
yeah.
find another one. God bless them if they can, but it's not easy. It's getting tougher. I mean, how many great goalies are there right now? Like great, maybe 3,
2,
4.
3.
I know I know Giancarlo. Maybe it's
Shurkin
less
and
for him.
Vasilevsky. That's pretty much it.
That's definitely not a 1-2. But yeah, Vasilevsky maybe, but ugh,
Okay.
just Starkin. Ugh.
Some younger
Okay, I
ones
know
that
you
are
don't like
coming up.
Shurkin. Who would be your 4 then?
Uh,
Don't say Jari, okay?
it's hard to say. I guess I
Right?
wouldn't push his Cirque in there. I wouldn't, and
Oh, come on.
he doesn't look good this year, and
Oh boy.
that's a
Okay.
whole other talk. He does
But
not look
that
good this year.
basically proves Dave's point, how hard it is for you to come up with
It's very hard.
4, right? That's proving his point. Like you don't see that back in the day. You could be like Patrick Waugh, Belfour,
Yeah.
Hasek, Cujo. Like there was always so many like elite goaltenders that like they used to call them money goaltenders. Now, who do you got? Like
Yeah,
Vasily's
It's
probably
going
the
more.
only one.
It's going more
Vasi, you got
towards
Hellebuck.
tandem, but
Yeah,
it's going more towards tandems now, right? Because
Yep.
it
if you
is,
can
but
have a
that
like, is it Jake Allen, Mike? He's a solid backup. I mean, you get him as a tandem with someone.
and another point to that, like Carey Price really likes Jake Allen, and that's another reason why I think Price will be back because why extend Allen if you're gonna not have Price back? I'm just telling you, it all adds up for
Believe it.
me that he'll be back next year. This is what
I
I'm
believe it.
this is what I'm thinking. Because why? I mean, and again, but back to the point, Giancarlo. The Canadians, you're right. If they have to move on, when are they going to move on? Maybe I'm, I'm not saying I know the answer and it's a big secret that I'm unveiling something or whatever. But if you're the Habs general manager and you don't have confidence that Price is going to be back, then you're going to have to make a decision soon on a starting goaltender next year, right? Like that's gotta happen sooner
If
rather
the
than
plan
later.
is to contend, if the plan is not to contend next year,
Oh,
then Allen is more
they
than
are
good
gonna
enough.
go for a playoff spot next year. I guarantee it. Whether they make it or not, that's a different story. But they
Yep.
are going to go for a playoff spot next year,
Hundred
guaranteed.
percent.
Guaranteed.
100%.
Yeah, it's adding up
Fans will
that
not
way.
put up with more of this. No, no way.
Yeah.
This is their last year of. I don't want to call it tanking. I think they're
Oh,
Well,
competitive
they're
it's
doing
team.
a
tanking.
smart tank. They're doing a smart tank.
No,
Yeah.
No,
but
no,
I
no.
mean, I don't think. Yeah, but I mean, their guys are working, man. I mean,
It's
they're not
not
going to lose on
Arizona
purpose.
tanking, if that's what you
No,
mean,
it's
right?
not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, for sure.
This is an organic tank because you're literally playing how many kids on defense? You know what I mean? Like you can't
Yeah.
win in the NHL when you're playing
no,
guys that are literally green.
yeah,
So
To be
no,
honest with you, it's very similar to the Leafs. When the Leafs tanked for Matthews, you know what? I know this sounds extremely stupid, but that team played hard every night.
yeah,
That team
doesn't
Philly
was
sound
is
in
now.
stupid.
every
But
game.
that's how Philly's
But
playing right now.
they were hard every night. They lost. They were terrible, but they didn't give up much, and they obviously had no chance to score, but they gave it all every night. They'd lose 3-1, 4-2,
Yeah,
and they played like, what are you gonna do? And that reminds me a lot of what Montreal's doing right now. Like their problem is obviously
difference though.
scoring, but well, yeah, Montreal's got better pieces, right?
But I
Like
think
Toronto had nobody, and like Habs have at least 4 really nice pieces. So that's
yeah, but if you
really
look
nice
at the
from the
Leaf
build.
roster compared to the Habs roster, the Habs are going to have a lot of their guys back next year. If you look at that Leaf roster, I don't even think anyone's even around anymore.
No, nothing. Well, maybe Riley was still
Oh,
there,
Riley
right?
and
Yeah,
Kadri, I'm
Riley was
saying,
there.
but in general,
Yeah,
a lot of those guys aren't even in the league anymore. So
yeah,
it was a
100%.
horrible roster. I can't even remember. I got to pull it up. Who led the team in scoring that year?
I do
Was
remember that
Brett
year.
Boyd?
I do remember that year. I remember them being really competitive. I remember it being, because I remember watching from afar saying they're going to get the first overall pick, and they barely finished sub 500. You know, like it was a pretty interesting season for you guys, to be honest with you.
It's the only thing we've ever won, Mike, in my lifetime.
It's true. I remember celebrating at my niece's communion, like we won the cup. How sad is that? What about you, Giancarlo? Did we ever get a chance to talk about the Pens last week?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I don't. We did. Well,
Yeah.
do you have any more updates on them this week?
Nothing crazy. Gensel and Zucker are both battling illnesses, so they should be back. They're on a bit of a slide. They lost 2 straight. Once in Calgary, once in Edmonton. They always seem
Did
to
you watch
struggle
the
on
Edmonton
opener.
game?
I caught most of it. I didn't watch the entire thing.
Mm.
I was in and out.
I happened to watch both games, and the Edmonton game was very weird. Like Pittsburgh dominated them at the beginning, and then McDavid got hurt, which by all means you'll explain it better than me. Like I think it was kind of a dirty play, but it was one of those plays that happen all the time. That's the difference, right? It shouldn't be suspendable or anything.
It was
but
a penalty. It was a penalty.
yeah, it's a penalty. But as soon as McDavid went down, I think that was the TSN turning point. Like Edmonton just decided, okay, guys, let's work. And from then on, Edmonton just dominated Pittsburgh. And yeah, they looked pretty bad. And then against Calgary, right from the get-go, they were just on another pace, you know. Calgary played really well that game.
Yeah, Calgary is looking really, really good in general. And I know this is weird to say because it's not Crosby, it's not Malkin, but when Gensel's out of the lineup, the team looks a little bit lost. And he plays a lot of games. He doesn't get hurt too often, but when he's hurt, they do worse with him out of the lineup than when Crosby's out of the lineup. I don't know what it is, because he's
Wow.
obviously not better than Crosby by any means, but
Who does he
I don't
play
know if
with? Crosby?
well, he plays with Crosby. I would actually go as far as saying him and Crosby might be the best duo in the league, like in terms of just chemistry, like raw chemistry. When you watch those two play together, the way they find each other is it's unbelievable. Yeah, like, but I don't know. It's weird. Hopefully Gensel's back soon. I think it was just an illness. I don't think it's an injury, so he'll be back, and hopefully we'll go back to winning because we want to be ahead of the Rangers.
Are you worried yet, or?
Nope,
I
not
hear a little
worried
bit.
yet.
I
Nope.
hear a little bit of panic in your voice. I'm
Just got to get out of Canada because for some reason they struggle against these Canadian teams. All 3 losses came to Canadian teams this year.
Oh, you haven't played here yet.
Yeah.
Don't worry, you'll get a win here.
Yeah.
You'll make it up.
But listen, look at the mindset Giancarlo has, because he has that. There's that history. There's that confidence in having a team that he knows can get it done when they need to get it done. Same with Tampa. Look at Tampa. They're kind of struck. What are they, like 3 and 5 out of the gate? Or 3?
4 and 4.
Okay, they're 4 and 4 now.
Yeah,
I mean, they haven't looked great, and yet no one's ever calling them out or anything, because everyone knows eventually that team will find its way, and that's what happens. And you always building towards something, and you actually execute when it counts, and it's the opposite here. So,
but you sure about what you just said? Because I've heard a couple people say Tampa's done.
Okay, but why are they? I think you're always going to hear that.
I don't agree with that at all. Those are the people that like to do clickbait.
Exactly.
Like, big talkers, like just so they can, this big take, oh, Tampa's done, they're what? Like, you're crazy. It's far too early to count out a team like that. Like, that's just my opinion. I think you got to give them at least another month or so to see what's going on.
Exactly, and that's why Giancarlo's not going to be worried about the Pens. The only thing I'll say is that whether it's the Pens, the Leafs, Tampa Bay, anybody, even on the west side, is that you cannot go on a long losing streak, because the race for the wild card is going to be crazy this year. And look at Vancouver. Vancouver is in big trouble. A couple more losses. They're going to be looking to change a whole bunch of stuff there. So,
well, they look like the Islanders of last year, right? Because that's what happened to the Islanders.
That's a good point.
They fell apart in the beginning, and you can't catch up. You just can't.
Well, Vancouver, but that's what Vancouver did last year as well. They got off to a horrible start.
Yeah, and then they fired their coach. But that's a good segue. What the hell is Vancouver going to do? I've heard whispers that they're already looking to change the coach again. Like, is that for real?
What's that gonna do? There's something going on. Some reports say the locker room's a mess, You know,
Well,
and
the team, it's. I mean, we talked about this before the season started, and I mean, Vancouver's a mess. Their star players aren't stars, and these guys that were supposed to kind of pick it up this year aren't. Like Podolsky or whatever the hell that guy's name, the
Close
I
Russian
love
enough.
guy,
I love this.
Close enough.
and Kuzmenko, the guy that got from the KHL. Like these guys, they're probably combined for what 3 or 4 points.
Yeah.
That's
He's
not
doing
good enough.
okay. The Russian kid, he's doing okay. But
Podolsky,
yeah, he's
he's
doing
got 2 assists.
okay. But he's not the guy that's supposed to be carrying the team, right?
Well,
The problem is, like we all said from the beginning, the defense is just non-existent.
so
And
bad.
can Demko carry them? Because he is a very good goalie, but the problem is Demko is not playing at an elite level. He's playing at a very average level.
Yep.
And in order for that team to win, he can't be average. He needs to be elite every
Yeah.
game.
That's not fair.
And
I hate that.
No,
that's
I
unfortunate.
hate that
sounds like
thought.
the Habs.
Yeah, exactly. I've been there, done that, got the T-shirt. I mean, that's unfair to Demko because I don't know, man. Like, and we talked a little bit about Vancouver before the season. Like, I didn't like the Miller signing, and now I hear
No.
Elliot Friedman talking about how you know that this slow start could push them toward a rebuild, and I'm like, wait a second, you just signed a guy to an 8-year, $50 million deal or whatever, like that. It's crazy.
Ridiculous. It's
It's
ridiculous.
it's crazy to suggest. Like I don't get it. Like, but this is where, hey, look, it's not rocket science. At some point, you have to ask yourself if you're closer to a rebuild than you are to winning a
Yep.
cup,
Yep.
and you got to make the right decisions to say, hey, you know what? It's and really more NHL teams are doing it. It's not like it's not a big secret. Like I think that there are more teams that are rebuilding now than actually contending in the NHL now. Like teams that are flat out tanking, like Chicago and Arizona, and then there's San Jose, Montreal. We could just go on forever with the amount of teams that could finish in the bottom five when you think about it, right? It's crazy to think about how many teams could. And then when you
Yeah.
name the contenders, there are maybe I already called them two elite teams, and then maybe a couple of other contenders that could win a cup. I wouldn't necessarily call them contenders, but you know what I mean? So like back to Vancouver again though, like man, I don't know. Like if I'm a fan, like
Mm.
what are you supposed to believe in? Like at some point you have to believe in the
All you
direction of the
ask
team.
for is a path, though, right? Like if you're a Vancouver fan, you just want some type of plan. You're like, okay, you can get behind
Right.
an idea. Like, okay, so the GM comes out and says, okay, so this is what we're going to do.
Right.
They don't have a plan. They're all over the place. Are they tanking? Are they not? Like they got
Well, they got
the Miller
Horvat.
signing was all over the place.
Horvat's got to be signed
But
now.
yeah, what
That's
are they
the
gonna
point. What
do?
are you gonna do with them? What are
Yeah.
you gonna do with
Yeah,
them?
That's another
you're gonna
problem.
trade your captain at the
Oh,
deadline.
they're in big
Like
Yeah.
trouble. This is big
I
trouble.
think they need an actual leader that's going to come in and say, listen, like we're going to tank. We're going to basically rebuild for the next year or two.
Hmm.
We're going to trade off, as much assets as possible. Like you're already there. You're already garbage. Like just go get a Bedard. Go get a top pick.
Yeah.
Get rid of these old contracts. Go get rid of anyone you can. Even like a Bull Horvat. Like a lot of the Vancouver, like I don't know if you call them insiders, they're saying that he's already out the door. Like just the way he was speaking, he just seems so destroyed, and he doesn't want to even be there anymore. So, and that's your captain.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
I
guy
don't
they might
know.
trade. That's the guy
Oh,
they might. If you
I
go,
see for sure.
but if you go
If they,
back to our Western Conference predictions, we brought this up saying, I think we talked about JT Miller, if we like that contract or not, and I think most of us said no, and
No. Yeah.
because we didn't think this team was good enough to compete.
But I guess maybe, now that I think about it, now and I'm not backtracking because I still don't like the JT Miller contract. Um, but if they finish in the bottom five this year, because it looks like they're going to be pretty bad, and then they get a top three pick, is this obviously that's the better thing for them? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, Now whether they can still get it done with that player, is it just going to be a 1 year kind of we'll call it a soft tank. You get that off year and you get that player, and then you're like, okay, now we're ready to compete. You know what? That might be the best thing
maybe
for the Vancouver Canucks. It might
think
be.
about it. You could trade a Bull Horvat for a solid defenseman, a stud defenseman, right? if you can potentially do something like a young defenseman, like even like a Schneider from the Rangers,
Yeah.
like
But
a
wait, how
Horvat.
do you do that unless he's gonna extend because he's a
Well, that's
UFA?
obvious. Yeah, hopefully can extend them. But if you can change, like if you can bring in some defense, and then you get a like a Bedard or even who's the other guy that Giancarlo loves? What's
Billy?
his name?
Fantilli.
Fantilli. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you bring in a real stud to come in and go behind Pedersen and Miller, like now you're talking. You already have like look what they have. They already have an excellent situation in Demko, and you got Pedersen, and you got Miller. Like those are some pretty good like up the middle strengths. You got Hughes. You got some really good pieces there. I think you could turn this around very quick if they
Yeah.
were lucky.
Well, that's the silver lining, right? Like when you this is the year to blow it, right? Like if you're gonna
Yep.
blow it, this is the year to do it. So, Vancouver's not gonna come out of the West with teams like Colorado and even Calgary that's going for it and Edmonton's going for it. Like at some point you're going to be like, you know what? You guys can have it this year. I'm not suggesting they're trying to tank. I think they're trying to win, but
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to look
They
for
are
the
trying
silver
to win.
I'm trying to look for the silver lining for them, right? Because I'm like, hey, it's not the end of the world. This is the right year for this to happen, right?
It is, but Tommaso's right. I mean, think about it this way. If they start falling behind, like to me, they're still a good team. They're not a great team. They're a good team. They have a lot of good players, but sometimes the ingredients aren't the right ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're better off trading some of these guys. And if they do trade, let's say they trade a Horvat, and let's say it goes, I think Colorado would be a great fit for him. But let's say they trade Horvat because they know they're not going to sign him for 6, 7, 8 million.
Yeah.
Suddenly, like you said, they're the bottom 5 team, but they also have a lot of good players around them too. That maybe next year they can put it together and start building with a top 3, top 4 pick.
Yep.
See, I disagree with them having these good players. I think that their players are overrated. I think Brock Bozer is overrated. Bo Horvat I've never thought of as that great. Pedersen is okay.
30 goals, man.
And
Like, it must be nice
Wow.
to cheer for the
Okay.
Pittsburgh Penguins. Like, I don't know. Like,
I know.
well, but I mean, I'm looking at this team. Is this team ever going to win with this core? And I just no. Even if they finish dead last and they got Bedard or Fantelli, I mean, I just don't think it'll be enough of an upgrade.
I see.
They don't have anything. JT Miller is a great. He's never going to get close to 100 points again. At least I don't think so. And then
Okay.
like it's just everybody else that they have, like that Russian guy. He was a 10th overall pick. They need him to turn into a 20, 30 goal scorer. And I mean, in the second season, he hasn't looked great. Doesn't look terrible, but he doesn't look great. It kind of looks like all their other players. Nobody looks elite on their team or excellent.
Well, elite
Excellent.
is not.
At least
Yeah,
a
I know.
very
Yeah,
That's
we
a
don't want
touchy
to go
word
through
here.
that again.
Very
you know?
sensitive word.
It
elite.
is. It is. Let's
Look,
change it to
I'll be
excellent.
honest with you though, Vancouver, it's all about Demko. That's it. That's all
Demko
the
and
conversation
Hughes.
is.
Hughes is
Demko
good too.
hid a lot of the mistakes. They hid a lot of the warts on this Vancouver team. He played on his head all the time. He was exceptional. So that's what happens, right? He hid all these little things, these blemishes and lack of defense. And this is 100% on the GM, right? Rutherford, he should have got some defense. Like he says he tried. There's no tried. You got to do it. You don't get awards for trying in anything in life. Well, I guess they're trying to go that route now, but that's a whole nother story. But for this guy to not like fill the holes on defense, that's on him. Because if he got a couple of defenders, I think this team would be much better than what they're showing right now. Because that's their problem. They can't keep. They're like Demko's got no help,
They
and
got
I
no
don't
cap
know.
space either.
Well, the
But they
coaches,
have,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
No,
from
no,
the
they have
previous
cap space.
resume, though,
No,
right?
they have cap
Like,
space. They do.
No, they don't.
I thought that
no,
they're at zero.
Oh no, you're
I think
right.
they're the
You're right.
only.
I'm looking at the
they're
wrong.
I think
right
they're
on
literally.
zero.
Yeah, they are.
You're
Yeah,
right. You're right. You're
They
right.
got like 400K or something, which
No,
is
no, no.
and they
It's
got
zero.
some
It's
bad
zero.
contracts
No,
too, right?
interesting. Yeah.
Egwin Larson,
Yep.
they got him. That's garbage. Like he's like that contract's really nasty. It's got years to come.
Yep.
So I don't know. Like I think you can get out of this. You're gonna almost have to give up some assets to start. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
Well, either
I
way,
don't know.
yeah, you're right. But that's the like I said, back to the point about this year. Like I know it's still early. It's only 5 games. They're 0-5 or whatever, so it's an 82 game season. It's not over yet. Uh, but I'm trying to say like if I'm like I would deal with it year at this point. We'll see what happens at the end of this year. I wouldn't fire the coach. I keep the coach. And if they, because the reality is if the plan wasn't to tank, then you shouldn't fire the coach. Um, right? Otherwise he deserves a shot. And then at the end of the season, if things continue to go poorly, then you benefit from the top 5 pick, and then you see where it goes next year, right? Like I agree with you guys in principle. Like there's more that you would need to build on this team, not just one pick. It would still require more. Um, but hey, man, we've seen other teams try to do this half-assed. You know, you, they think one player is going to make all the difference, and maybe a player like Connor Bedard would make the difference for Vancouver. I don't know, right? So maybe that's
Yeah,
what they're
but
thinking.
think
They get
about that
enticed
though
by
for a
that.
second. But think about that for a second. If you're a GM or like a new GM coming into Vancouver, like you've seen far worse situations than what Vancouver's got like in front of you.
Oh yeah, yeah,
If they
yeah,
get lucky and get like a Bedard or someone, oh my God, that's an incredible situation
yeah,
to take control of. You got incredible players. Okay, I know
yeah.
incredible is a
No, no,
strong
you got
word.
you got some
Be
good
You got
careful.
pieces.
some
Be
really good
careful.
talent to build around. Like, what do you need to? You got a good forward depth already. You got a goaltender. You got a legitimate
A good
power
defenseman.
play
A good.
quarterback.
Yep.
Like, yeah. So, what are your big acquisitions that you need? Maybe some a little bit of a different look on your top six, a little
Yeah.
more physicality and defense. Okay. Okay, what about some improvement on your defense? That is your obviously your number one chore. But besides that, like we're talking about the Canadians here, we're talking about Arizona. Those guys are looking for number one centers, number one defensemen,
Yeah. They're looking for
goalies,
for big
like
pieces. Yeah.
huge pieces.
Yep.
Vancouver's not in that same situation. So if they, steer this the right way, it doesn't have to be doom and gloom for them.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Well, things are only going to get worse this season, I think, or at least in the start, because Quinn Hughes and Boss are there on IR. So
Well, we'll see how it goes for Vancouver. You guys want to talk about the Leafs? LTIR?
Sure.
So the
There's
Le
nothing much to talk about. It's just Muzzin
What do you mean?
got
That's
moved to.
massive. That's massive.
Well, they moved him to LTIR because basically for cap room, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because once Clifford got hurt, it was all cap implications. They needed to move him on so that they could still carry 23 players. This is just like Muzzin. They knew right from the beginning that he wasn't coming back anytime soon, but they were holding off because it's all about um, just managing the cap and get as much possible for the entire season. And who knows? We'll see where they go from here.
Well, I mean, that when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is a precursor to a trade that's coming because hey, you can make light of it or all you want, but I'm here to tell you that the Leafs got to win this year. So Muzzin is a top 4 defenseman on the Leafs. Now, I know he's not what he was, and I know that he's been battling injuries, but he's still playing top 4 minutes for you guys. So you're going to need somebody to
Sure,
fill
but
that gap.
okay, so let's take it where the direction you're going, right? Okay, so you're thinking that they're doing this in order a trade is incoming.
It has to be.
Okay,
Has to
so
be.
it has to be. We're bringing in a salary of what? Like, what are we bringing in? Like, are you talking about like a significant player,
Well,
or are
that's
you
why
talking
I'm
about
asking.
small time
That's what
player?
I'm asking you. Do you
Right?
not think that like I'm looking at the move just on the surface and say, why are they going to move him to LTIR? It's not always the case. Some teams don't do that because LTIR
No, but
means you get that relief, but when a player comes back, you have to give that space back,
yeah,
right? So
exactly. And that's where I'm going with this, right? Okay, so we make that trade. We get like a Chickram or whoever, and it's a significant salary coming back. Once Jake Muzzin comes back, you got to free up that cap room again.
Muzzin won't
It's
come
not just
back.
like
Who says he's
so
coming
unless
back?
you think
Muzzin
he's
won't come
gone for the
back.
rest of the year.
I
I
don't
don't
think.
think he's
Uh,
coming back.
I agree with Dave. Yeah.
Oh, that's a
This is
whole nother
almost like
story.
a Carey Price story.
This is
I
a
don't.
Carey Price, Kucherov. This is the way it
Yeah.
works nowadays. Muzzin is an older guy. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that the Leafs are sandbagging it or whatever, but again, it's the same thing that Kucherov. Like they're gonna say he's not ready, right?
Mhm.
Muzzin, it's win-win for the Leafs, if you ask me, right? Like where do they lose on this?
Yeah, I think that
Where
would
do
be
they
the
lose?
Yeah,
They can lose in a lot of ways. They can lose because the GM will suddenly feel like he has to give up a first, and he's got to give up one of
yeah.
his top prospects.
I think they
So
were gonna do
there
that
there are ways.
regardless. They were gonna do that
Yeah, and I
regardless.
mean,
They're just this is
but
just
no,
them creating
I'm not
space.
disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
But I'm not disagreeing with you, but this goes back to Giancarlo not being worried about his team losing 2 or 3 in a row, and here we are. We're in the opposite spectrum, saying this can go sideways, like very badly.
Well,
Oh
it's do or
yeah.
Because
die now, though. It's do or die,
but look,
right?
but I think they've. Okay, this is gonna go back to this. They've put themselves in this spot. That's it. You
Yeah.
know, you still don't have an identity with this team. You still don't know. You still have question marks on D. You have question marks on your bottom six. You have question marks in net. I, to me,
I
this is
think this.
not.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I say to me, it's almost like it's a waste to make this trade for who? For Chikrin, let's say. Another guy who's injury prone. He hasn't even played yet. I don't know, guys. To me, it just. I'd rather talk about another team, to be honest with you, than go over the same stuff over and over. Because
No, but I mean, okay,
I don't see. I don't.
but we don't have to talk about the same stuff over and over again. We're talking about the fact that they put this guy on LTIR. So I'm suggesting that they're gonna make more moves, but you're saying that it doesn't matter
No,
one way or the other. Like,
no.
Well,
That if
you're
you're implying
replacing
that
Muzzin.
they put Muzzin on LTR and a trade is imminent, I 100% don't agree with that
huh?
at all. Like
Okay.
that's not the reasoning why it was done. But it just can a trade happen? I don't know. Like Dave said, I think there's more to this, right? You know, I don't think Dubas is going to be allowed to just make trades to save his job. I think there's going to be someone above him saying, no, we're not throwing assets to like a lost cause here, you know. So I don't know. I don't know. If Chikrin was 100% the answer for this team, like if he was that piece that would put them over the top, then I could see it happening. But this team needs so much more than just Chikrin, and that's the problem right now.
Yeah. No, I mean that goes back to what I'm saying. Like, it's not like he's the answer. He's like, making a trade for Chikrin is not going to put you over the top. It'll make you better, but he's replacing Muzzin. So not like you're adding to this defense. He's replacing one of your top 4 guys, right?
But it sounds like you guys are saying that the trade's not gonna happen. Like I want to make sure
No, I
we
think
are
some.
aligned
No, no.
on
I think he's gonna. No, I think he's gonna add a forward and he's gonna add a defenseman. But is it gonna be a top guy? Like Tommaso said, are you willing to give up all your assets and draft picks again?
Yeah. So here, let me give you an actual better explanation than what I gave you. So here's a quote from Keith. He hasn't had the follow-up appointment he was supposed to have, and nothing has changed. So Keith, and the move was made merely to make some salary cap space available, which isn't possible under regular injury reserve. That's just a normal IR.
hmm
With the new LTIR designation, the veteran defenseman will be out of the lineup until at least November 11th. Due to the required 10 days and 24 days, the required 10 days and 24 days, that doesn't make sense. Due to the required 10 days and 24 days, a player must sit before he can be activated. Okay.
10 games. I think it's 10 games.
10 games,
Yeah,
24
I think they
days.
meant
Okay.
10 games
Okay.
and 24 days. Okay.
Sure.
So so basically what he's saying is like it's all about salary implications what happened because see heading into the game Vegas Golden Knights shoulder injury to Clifford was a problem. By moving Muzzin's injury to IR to LTIR, the Leafs were able to get enough cap space to add the young defenseman being Philip Kral, to the active roster. See how that works, right? The Leafs were at the maximum allowed 23 players with just under $750,000 in salary cap space. So that's why they did the move when they did
I
it.
see. So
It
you're
wasn't like,
so they're not
you
you're
know what
not
I mean?
anticipating any trades. They're basically
No.
so then who
Well,
takes Muzzin's
of
minutes
course they
then?
could.
Who takes
They
Muzzin's
got
minutes?
Lilligren's coming
So
back.
right now it's
Paul's
Liljegren, and well, right now it's Sandin. Sandin shifted over back to the left, and Mete is the one that's the sixth defenseman that will be replaced by Liljegren once he finishes his Marley stint, which he's doing right now. He just started,
Okay.
and he looked pretty good, by the way.
Yeah, so
He's
the reason I think they put him on a long-term reserve there is so that they can kind of move guys up and down from the minors without being right against the cap. Because if they didn't have enough to bring a guy like Crawl up, that's kind of an issue. Like that's a minor league contract. You got to have that little bit of breathing room. So I don't think that it was done specifically because there's a trade about to be announced, but as a long-term plan, they do need to make a trade. There's no doubt whether Muzzin was healthy or not healthy, they were going to make a trade. So now that he's probably going to be out for the season because of the lingering neck issue, and he's older, I can see him just being gone for the rest of the year. But the thing is, Dave made the best point. What are they going to bring in? Whoever they bring in, it's just to replace Muzzin. They're not going to be bringing in like top player or anything like that. So I don't know. It's kind of tough. It's more of a replacement than an upgrade than anything else, right? But I guess
For sure.
it's still going to be an upgrade on Muzzin, depending on what they bring in. But
Just
yeah,
hold on, just to add a little note on that. It's not a neck injury, like per se. Like the big concern is the head injury, right? Because he's had multiple concussions,
Yeah.
and I think that's the concern right now. It's not his neck.
oh, I thought it was his
It's
neck.
well, they've said neck, but everyone knows it's a concussion, right? That's what they're worried about.
Well, here's the thing. You're in a spot like they are where Mike made a good point. They have to win this year. This is not a year to tank, even though it'd be nice. It's not a year to miss the playoffs or lose first round again. So how do you take that risk with Muzzin? Because and Giancarlo knows with concussions and Crosby, no one knows, right? In terms of how long they last, in terms of the next one could be worse. So what kind of risk are you taking where Muzzin say, no, I might be okay. Give me a couple months, whatever. Like, are you listening to him or are you making the call? Like, it's a horrible position that they're in. Very horrible.
But they were in the same scenario last year with Muzzin, right? Muzzin had the exact same scenario last year, and he came back just before the playoffs, and he actually performed admirably. He was fantastic against Tampa. Like I can't say anything negative about Muzzin. He did his job against Tampa,
Oh,
but
he
we
did.
had this exact conversation with Muzzin last year, saying, why not keep him out until the playoffs start, because that will
But I
give
think,
you
but,
X number of dollars, and they refused to do it. Right?
yeah, but that happened midway, or I think it was midway through the season. This has happened right at the beginning. Like, is he
Yeah,
going to
which
be
is
out for? Is
longer
he
for
going to
him
be
to
out for?
recover, right?
But that
Right?
goes to my point. What if he says, guys want to play? I don't think this guy wants to just sit and watch.
Exactly.
So if he's
Exactly.
saying,
Given at his
if
age though, Dave, I get on. I don't want to sound
well,
like
he's what? He's I think 33, 34 at
yeah,
most.
he's got
But
mileage though. Like,
how do you tell a guy to go sit and play PlayStation? I know you're okay and you're healthy, but you know what? Stay home and play PlayStation because we need the cap room.
Yeah.
I know like it's happened, I guess,
Well, hey,
like
look,
in Tampa, but I don't
exactly
know.
Tampa, and then what's his face last year? Ekblad. Come on, Ekblad played
I don't
game
think
one.
Apple Club is what you think it is. Like it's not the
The guy
same
played
scenario.
game one.
That guy is broken. You know, like he came back, he was not the same, man. Ekblad
Oh,
was playing hurt. Like he was
Playoffs?
not healthy.
Talking about the
So
playoffs?
that's what he's
Yeah,
suggesting. Yeah.
yeah, game
Yeah,
one, he was not the same
he
at
came back
all.
early. He came back too early.
Yeah, he was not like, oh, 100%,
Well,
like no problems
all I
here.
know is
I'm
that when he
completely
got
healthy.
hurt,
No way.
all I know is that when he got hurt, I predicted he'd be back game one of the playoffs, and I was right. Whether he came back early or not or whatever, I didn't like the smell of it when
But
it
that
happened.
100%
I
matters,
just
right?
don't
You're
like it.
implying that
Yeah.
he's just staying at home like 100% healthy. That is completely
I
like
think all
false
these
when it
guys
comes
could.
down to a
I'm not
situation
saying
like that.
100% healthy. I'm saying that these guys could all be on LTIR at some point in time, is what I'm trying to say. They're probably all nicked up
Sure.
to a degree, right? So, and I think that the team, we've seen teams exploit that, you know, loophole a little bit in the last few years. Like I'm not saying anything that hasn't been discussed and people were critical of it. Like when you're talking about contending for a cup, I think you should take advantage of all these little things, right? So I'm just trying to think, maybe the Leafs are playing that game, right? Because it's like, you know what? It's big boy time. Like this is not. It's time for them to win now. Like this, we're not messing around
No,
anymore. They're taking out all the
no,
stops.
Listen, if you can add a Chikrin type and knowing that Muzzin might be able to come back in the playoffs and he's willing to play that game and hold out, then you've upgraded it. You made your defense much stronger, right? Because
Right.
their defense is their weak spot. They're very soft on D, and the fact that someone like Shanahan allowed a team to be built with that's such a soft offense is very surprising.
Yeah.
So if you can get Muzzin back, because he's the other than when Labushkin was here last year, no one really hits on this decor, and so I don't know. This is like the Carey Price thing. Too many question marks.
yeah.
Well, we'll see. Time will tell. I don't know. I don't know the answer either. I thought that this would be, you know, more of a trade type of scenario for the Leafs, but especially with the noise that we've been hearing in the media lately. Like usually I'm of the belief that those things get floated out for a reason. Um, and
Yeah.
I've been hearing a lot of that stuff from the Leaf media in recent days. So to
That's
me,
the norm, though. That's the norm with Toronto. Anytime there's someone on the market, first thing the Toronto media does is, oh, he's coming to Toronto. Like I've
He's
heard more
ours.
Chickham to Ottawa, way more,
yeah, I
like
heard
way
about
more
that too.
rumors with Ottawa and Chickham than like this is just recent because of course Muzzin gets injured, boom, now all of a sudden the Toronto media goes crazy
Yeah, they're
with the
looking for
Chickham to
stuff.
Toronto, right? And that's all it is. It's
Yeah,
just radio talk. But will Leafs make a trade? Of course, there's a possibility, right? Like every GM in the league is looking to upgrade your team. So if a deal becomes available for Dubas, of course he's going to try to improve his team, right? Well, wouldn't you?
well, yeah, but I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm gonna go on record to say that I think they're gonna make a deal, and I think that they moved Muzzin to LTIR to make a deal. So anyway, it'll if I'm wrong, I'll own it, but I think that I don't know if I'd call it imminent, but I definitely think something will be done, um, in the next month. I'd be surprised if it goes longer than that, but that's just my take. We'll see. What else we got? We had Josh Norris injury out 3 to 5 months. Surgery is not
Oh
out of the
boy.
question. Ottawa Senators. Giancarlo, why don't you start us on this one?
Yeah, I don't see him coming back this year. Especially with the surgery. Like I don't know. I think that he probably sits out for the rest of the year. And if I'm Ottawa, I'm not rushing to get him back either. This is kind of that year for Ottawa. Like they definitely want to contend to make a playoff spot. But with the draft class the way it is, like and again, obviously you're not going to purposely tank, but if you're going to be bad, this is the year to be bad. So I mean, if they do miss the playoffs this year, he'll be back next year. He'll be ready to go. They'll have a good pick. But even with him being out, I don't completely think that they're out of a playoff spot or can't compete because Shane Pinto has been phenomenal for them, and he'll slide right into that second line center spot. And if he keeps going, I mean, not only is he going to be making a name to maybe win the Calder Trophy this year, but he might lock down that second line center spot, and it'll be like Josh Norris never went anywhere because I mean, he's a surprise. He was a nice addition to the team this year. He wasn't expected to be doing as well as he's doing, or there was no expectations for him to even make the team. So, and then with the Brassard signing, I really like that one. I didn't like when Brassard was in Pittsburgh. He sucked, but he's been good everywhere else he's been, and I mean, he's a good third line center. So if they have him on the third line center, I don't know. They're definitely not out of a playoff contention with the Josh Norris injury. I don't think we should rule them out yet.
I'm like, as a guy that picked Ottawa to make the playoffs, I think this is going to be a really I think this is going to be a crippling injury for them. I'm going to disagree with you, but only
It's
because
an obstacle.
I'm going to say that I know that you're saying Shane Pinto is going to be able to step in, and I know the kid's been doing really well, 6 points in 6 games, but you know, and I know that I think it's a bit of a reach to say he's going to continue that pace because you're going to need a guy to do what Josh Norris did last year. And Norris had what? He almost got 80 points last year. Or did he get more? Something like that. I can't remember. But he had an amazing year. I remember like saying, "Who is this guy?" And he was, I had to like Google him a few times because it was like, where did this guy come from? Um,
He only
so
had 55 points last year, but he had 35 goals.
that's what it was. Okay, so he scored 35 goals. So either way, like the kid, like that to me is it's a big thing for them to overcome. And I'm heartbroken as a guy that picked them to make the playoffs because I think this is going to be something that's going to be too hard for them to overcome. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong because they did get other players like DeBrincat and Giroux and guys that you're supposed to complete your lineup. But it's just the pressure's going to fall on all those guys to kind of make up for that point production or that goal production, and it's going to be that much harder for them to do.
100%.
It was
I think
55
that's
points
going to
in
be
66 games, so I mean it was almost point per game. He
no,
didn't play a
but
full
I
80.
think what you're forgetting is like it's nice that Pinto's there, but you're talking about a third line center playing against other third line players. Now he's getting bumped up into a second or first line situation. Now he's going up against
Yeah,
significantly better opposition.
right,
And
right.
that's what's going to be the problem. You're getting a kid, like what is he, 19, 20? He's a kid, first year in AHL.
He's
Like
21.
21.
we've
He's 21. Yeah.
yeah, so we've discussed this with like Suzuki, and we talked about this with Caulfield and stuff like that. Like it's a very similar situation, right? Once these kids are thrust into a high leverage situation, it's a completely different scenario. Like that's why good teams protect these guys. They put them in limited minutes. They keep them in offensive zone face-offs only. They don't start them in defensive zone face-offs. Like those are things that you do. If you're putting a Pinto and you're going up against the opposing team's number one center, it's going to start weighing on you, and you're going to see a huge drop off. I think Mikey's right. I think there's going to be that's a very, very big blow for them. But like obviously Claude Giroux can shift over and play center, but I don't know. Like that was the whole thing with Ottawa, that they lack the depth that is going to make them a contender. Everything needs to go right for them to be a contender, and that already is like a huge blow to them, I think.
This is where your depth is tested, and I think with Norris, you can put them up in near the top in terms of having two solid lines. So a lot's going to depend on if these guys can carry the load without him. And I think in the early on in the season, they'll have a bit less pressure to do so, right? Because as the season starts, everyone's fresh and you're all excited. But as you guys alluded to, as time goes on and games get tougher and they narrow down who they want to, whether it's Pinto or someone else, it's going to get a little bit tougher for them. So I don't know. I think they were in the running for Chikrin when they were all healthy, and they thought maybe one more D-man would put him into the playoffs for sure. I think if they would have done that deal, maybe I would have picked them to make the playoffs after making a deal like that. But I don't know. I think I'm with you, Mike. I think it's going to be tougher for them to make it now. I mean, he's a good player, right? So it's not easy to replace that. Okay, so if you're Ottawa and you've lost him for the season, because it's looking like he might be out for the guys. I think he's injured that shoulder before as
Yeah,
well,
I've
right?
heard that. Yep, yep.
Yeah, so that's already not a good sign. But what do you do now? Do you go out and this is like the Jake Muzzin thing?
Yeah,
What do
exactly.
you do now? Do you go out and call Vancouver and try and grab Horvat? I don't know. Like
I would.
you got to do something.
I would straight
You
That
got to
out.
would
do
be
something.
I would.
interesting. That
Yeah.
would be interesting. Yeah. If you can extend them, sure. But then again, like now you're talking about pretty nice assets to give up, right? You're looking at a first plus. I don't know.
Well, listen, these guys are. This is like where Montreal will hope to be next year, right? You're done with rebuilding, and you're willing to give up an asset or two to make a run for the playoffs. Because the way it looks now, as long as you make the playoffs, you get a ticket to the dance, then you got a shot, right?
But if
So
you're the Ottawa GM, he had a fantastic summer. Sure, but you need to read the tea leaves. Like, this is not the year you go all in. Like I would not trade significant assets for the team in front of you right now. Like, I don't know if things are
Not all
already
in.
starting to struggle. Like, why would you trade first round picks? Like,
Why
that's
you
like I
why you
wouldn't
all
do
in
it.
though? But you're not all in.
No, but giving up a first round pick for me, that's too much. Like, that's like a significant
But you're getting,
investment.
but depends what you're getting, right?
I wouldn't trade a first round pick, especially in this draft. Like, this
It
year's
doesn't have to
draft
be
is really good.
you can trade a prospect. Doesn't have to be a first round pick.
Sure. Well, it depends on the prospect, right?
You
Again,
got to
like
get out. You got to get out of that losing culture. You got to start instilling
Yeah, you got to
a
start to make
playoff
some
team.
strides. Yeah,
Yeah, you have
sure.
to.
like I understand what you're saying, Tomas. Like this isn't the year to do that, and I know we've talked about the fact that if you're not close enough to the cup, it's more beneficial to get those top three players that you see this year. But I think,
Yeah.
but Ottawa's already been like Ottawa's already paid these guys. Like they've already paid
What's one
Brady.
more year?
Paid Kachuk.
One more year being
They've paid
garbage.
Norris now. They've paid Shabbat. I know what you're saying, um, and maybe there's some merit to that. But I think that what Dave is saying is at some point you have to turn that corner. Otherwise, there is that inherent risk of building that culture of losing. And that's the stuff that I always am fascinated by, to be honest, when we talk about tanking, because I see teams do it and then they turn that corner. And I'm always fascinated with how do they turn that corner? How do they decide that this is going to be a year that we compete? And we've seen Detroit do it. Like Detroit was openly tanking, and now all of a sudden they're signing unrestricted free agents,
Yeah.
and they're building a team literally in front of our eyes and throwing them out there. Whether or not they're gonna, I think that he's not gonna. It's not a cup winning team, obviously, but he's definitely trying to take that step. So again, Detroit you could put Detroit in the same category. Like, why would they go out and sign all these guys if this is the year where there's going to be all these guys that are available?
Mhm.
I think at some
Well,
point you just say, you know what, we've already done our building, we've already got our core, we've already got the guys that are going to be the foundational players, and now it's time for us to start to move, right?
For sure.
Eiserman did say that though. He said it's time to take the next step. He said that.
Sure. But we're forgetting a very important thing, and that's from like one of our most valued listeners out there that follow our podcast religiously. Ottawa's garbage, and they're always going to be garbage, and they'll never be good. So who cares? They're garbage, and nothing they do matters. Is that good for you, Nobuto? I hope he's happy for his little call out. That's pretty much it.
So aside from that, one thing to note about them is Alex Fermenton is still not signed, and they have about 4.5 million in cap space right now. If they were to move Josh Norris to long-term IR, that opens up like 7.1, I think he signed for, so or 7.1 or 7.8. I mean, either way, over 7 million in long-term
No, but wasn't
cap
hold on.
space.
What
Who
was that?
signed? Who signed?
No, but wasn't that next year? He
Yeah,
wasn't.
next year.
Yeah,
Norris is next year.
yeah.
Oh, it's not, it doesn't take into account right now.
No,
Let me.
Oh.
he's still on his entry level, whatever.
Yeah, I believe.
No, no, it's this year. I'm
Is
looking
he?
at it. 7.9. So it's actually closer to 8 million that opens
Wow.
up in cap space.
I
You're
believe you.
right. You're right. That's
Yeah,
right.
and Alex Formenton would be a really, really nice piece for them. I still don't know why he's not signed, especially with this injury. He's a left winger, and you guys brought up Claude Giroux can slid into the center spot. I think they recover from this. I don't think it's as big of a blow as maybe you guys are making it out to be. So I'm going to play on the other side of this.
Yeah.
I still think that they have a chance. My biggest issue with this team remains in that. Like,
Isn't he back?
You can say that
He's
about a
on. He's
lot
on the
of
trip with
teams.
them now, isn't he?
who's
He's
he?
gonna be back soon. He's coming back
The
soon.
goalie, what's his
Talbot.
name?
Sam
The brought
Talbot?
from Minnesota. Talbot. He's
I
on the
don't-
road trip with
I
them.
don't believe in Talbot though. I think he's garbage. And then they have Forsberg who's garbage, and then they called
Wow.
up Magnus Hellberg who's garbage. So I don't know. I just don't know what
Okay,
they're
so
doing.
let me get this straight.
I
The
love it.
goalies are all garbage,
And,
All
right?
garbage.
and
But
they're
you
going to make
believe
the
in this
playoffs.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I just
That's
want
the
to make
part
sure
that I
we're
don't
on.
believe in is the
Understand this.
goaltending. If they can get a goalie, that's where I would be trying to move some players around and just try to get a goalie. Forget getting a replacement for Norris. They have that. Get a dang goalie.
Yeah,
Or
but
You know,
Okay.
let Stolgard play.
I could see Anderson on Ottawa next year. That guy would fit in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they
Okay.
need a goalie. I don't believe in Talbot either. Forsberg,
Talbot, I don't mind.
I don't,
He's a
I
veteran
don't
goalie.
mind him, but if you're gonna rely on him to take you to the next level, I don't think he's the guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's had a lot of chances, Mike. He's had a lot of chances.
That's fair.
Yeah, but even Anderson, I think he's being like he's a product of his environment. Like Carolina, oh my God, I think I would have a 900 save percentage in Carolina because
True.
they're just that good. Like you could
Mrazek,
put
eh?
any, yeah, Mrazek was incredible, and he fooled one of the NHL GMs to sign him. I forget who that guy was. Let me see. Oh yeah, he's the Leaf GM, Doofus. But like, it's crazy. Just he like I don't know. Anderson, if you put him on a team like Ottawa, because Ottawa gives up a ton of scoring chances. Their defense is not very good. They're very similar to Vancouver's defense if you really think about it. Like Zaitsev is just garbage, but like you know how I don't know. I don't even know what they're gonna do with that guy. Like they sat him for a couple games recently, and they went on this winning streak, and now he's back in the starting lineup. Like I don't understand. What like I get it in some ways that you think that you need to play him because how are you going to get this guy off your roster if he's sitting in the press box? You got to play him. You got to show people that he's, you know, like he's an NHL viable defenseman to move him. But if your team's doing well without him in the lineup, I don't know. They're in a tough situation with that guy.
Okay, so our last topic of the day. Do we foresee any coaches being fired next week? We're talking about next week or like as early as next
Next
week?
podcast.
By next week.
By next week? Okay. Do we foresee any coaches being fired within the next week in the NHL? Anybody?
I see maybe Dallas Eakins going. Anaheim just hasn't gotten going since last year, and I'm not even sure Eakins is their guy, to be honest with you. I think he was inherited by the new GM, right?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like that's pretty early in a season. I know that Anaheim has looked pretty bad, but I don't know, man. You're firing a coach literally not even a month into the year.
They
I'd
had
be shocked.
expectations, Mike.
Yeah.
But they had expectations this year. Some people picked them to battle for a playoff spot, and coming out with one win in their first 7 games, and I think they're -6. They've given up, I think, 30
Ah,
over
they
30
stink.
goals in their first 7
They're a
games.
soft team. Good skill team,
Oh,
but
but
they're
I'm
Yeah.
they're
just saying,
soft.
like you got. Remember we said if you fall behind too quickly, sometimes you're not going to get back in that race. So
Yeah, but what was the real expectations with that team? I'm with Mikey. I think this team is not like they were hoping to take that next step, but I don't think the pressure's on them like it is in Vancouver. I think if you had to give me a choice between Dallas Eakins and and
Boudreaux.
Vancouver,
Boudreaux.
it's Boudreaux for sure. 100, like oh yeah, I think Boudreaux's the one that's on a serious hot seat, and if they don't win and win soon, I think a change is going to be coming there for sure. Like that's the one, like over Anaheim.
well, those are the only two really that you're going to see possible
I
coaching change. Anyways.
In the next week, yeah. If you're
Yeah.
talking about the next month or two, then I think there's another guy that you're going
Well,
to be
then
throwing in that list.
but then it opens. No, that opens up a whole different can of
Or you
worms.
could just say
For
who's the
sure.
next coach to be fired. You don't have to say a week. Like a week is pretty short, man. Like if Dave, I gotta
No,
Dave, if you
but
call
Mike, when
this,
you
Yeah.
Dave, if you call this that this guy gets fired in a week, I'm gonna be like, how the hell did Dave call that a coach got fired in a week? Like it's
I don't think
impressive.
Dallas. Yeah, but I don't think Eakins was their guy to begin with. The new GM there, so it was a Verbeek. I think it's Verbeek, right? He inherited
Uh-huh.
this team, so I don't know, man.
But
You got a lot of
if you're
young
the
guys
Anaheim
there.
GM, why are you worried? Who cares?
It's not
Let the
so
young
much,
guys develop and
but we're
get a
going
nice
back.
top pick.
But we're going back to what we said about building a culture, and you start building a team that's losing, and I don't
True.
know.
Yeah, they have a lot of those younger guys like McTavish. Like how many of those guys you're gonna have? You know,
Have it. Well, I know.
Zegras,
Yeah,
McTavish. Who's that?
Drysdale.
Drysdale's there. Yeah, they got Troy Terry. You know, like they
You can
have.
never have enough Bedards. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Uh, there's
When
only
a
one
guy
puck.
named Bedard is there,
There's only one puck
you
on the
you
ice.
make that
Yeah.
exception.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
like, look at
it's
the
true.
difference between teams when they got a Yakupov on your first overall and you got a McDavid first overall. Like
That's
there's a
true.
big
Yeah,
difference,
you're
right?
right. There's a time to
So
tank. You're bang on.
yeah,
Yeah, we've
look at Montreal last year, right? They got Slavkovsky, right?
Slakov.
And
Yeah,
we're talking about like you're not even happy about that. Like,
yeah.
and what?
Well,
Imagine it
that's
was this year. Like,
yeah.
how happy would you be? You'd
Oh
probably have a
yeah, yeah.
Bedard jersey
Well,
already,
oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
I secretly already do, just so you know. Like I've already
But
purchased
there
them.
you go,
Yeah,
right? So that's what I mean. Like
yeah.
it's such a world of a difference
No, it
between
is. It
like you've
is.
got a generational player and then like an okay good player. Like
Yeah.
we're not even in the same conversation.
It's funny that you brought up Slavkovsky. He scored his first goal last week. I'm sure you guys saw. But then he ended up hurting himself. Like they've said he's got an upper body injury, and I think
Uh-oh.
Arbor let it slip that it was his wrist. And he has not resumed practicing with the team yet. So he hasn't been given the green light by doctors. I think I read that he was traveling with the team and he was skating either on his own or he was skating with the team today, but not on a line or something like that. But just strange that this poor kid scores his first goal. And actually, I know I've been not critical of him, but I'm just calling it like I see it. Like when you watch the player, you are going to evaluate the player based on what you see. And I just didn't see a lot of great moments from him when I watched him in the time that I did. But I will say that in the game that he scored, I started to see more. And I found it interesting that when he got hit, like it's almost like he got mad and he went to get the puck and he put it in the net. Like I don't know if you saw the highlight. Like it was crazy to me because it's like someone woke him up, where they're like, he had his head down or whatever and the guy stepped up on the blue line and then this kid looked at the ref for half a second and then ref didn't call a penalty and he just put his head down, went after the puck and put it in the net, right? So, I mean, it gives me hope when I saw good moments, but it's sad that he got hurt because you want those that to continue. You want to see him gain a little bit of confidence and start to make more of those impactful plays because up until now he's just been sort of there, right? So,
It's funny
For
that you
sure.
said that. It reminds me of when Crosby came into the league, and I mean, he was definitely a crybaby when he first started. Calls wouldn't go his way, getting hack and slashed, and he brought it up in his book, his audio book, and he said how eventually I realized like the refs aren't going to make every call. You're not going to get every call. It's not going to be catered to you. You just got to suck it up and keep playing. And maybe he sort of realized that. Slavkovsky, I don't know.
yeah, I think he
Mm.
realized it pretty quickly. He looked at the ref. The ref didn't have his hand up, and he just went after the puck, right? Like he didn't go after the retaliate or anything. He just went after the puck and put it in the net. So it was a good
But
sign.
that
But
was a beautiful moment. I'm sorry. Like even though someone who hates the Habs, like I'm watching that play and he scores, and that pure emotion of him screaming at was it Brown
yeah,
that made the hit?
yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, he screamed that. I'm like, woo, like that was awesome. And the
Oh
way
That
yeah,
was
that it was, who
fantastic.
was it? Was it
it was Arbor.
Wi-Fi that jumped in his arms?
Yeah,
Was it
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi?
They
Yeah,
call him
so
Wi-Fi. What
Wi-Fi
a
jumps
name.
in.
What a name.
Wi-Fi jumps in his
Yeah.
arms, and that's like to me, that's what you want, man. You're building a team. Like Dave keeps bringing it up over and over again, and he's dead right. Culture, man. Get these kids loving it, getting like fighting for each other. Like X was more excited with his fight than his first goal. Like that tells you
That's
what
true.
type of character that kid has, man. Like you got some good guys on that team. I hate saying that, like I want to throw up just saying these things, but like I call it as it is. Like it just they got some good guys on the Habs that like you should be very encouraged about where this team is going.
Definitely excited. And like I said, this will be the decision-making time for me, right? Where I mean, obviously I'll cheer. I'll always say I'm a Habs fan, but it's like you want to get excited when you have an opportunity to win, right? So you'll always watch because it's your team, but I get excited when they have a chance to win, right? So this year will
For sure.
really be the that point in time where we'll find out.
Are you gonna
Well,
hate me that I'm cheering for Montreal not to get first overall? Would you
No,
hate me if I
no,
said that?
I get it, I get it totally. I totally get it. I mean,
Because if you got Connor Bedard, like to see that guy light up the Leafs for the next
Yeah.
15 years, like I give up on hockey. I'm sorry.
Well, I
I'm
mean, I've
done.
been having to watch Austin Matthews. I've been watching Austin Matthews light up the Canadians, so it's the same thing. Like it's no different. But
Oh, woe is me watching you Habs win a Stanley Cup in your lifetime and having amazing players in your lifetime. I know you got it tough,
oh,
bro.
enough with this.
Yeah.
I was a kid in 1993, so it's been a long time since that
Sure.
happened. I mean, not all of us can be Giancarlo. Don't pick on me, okay?
I
Because
know.
if we're gonna pick on
Hey,
anybody
leave me
here,
out of this.
if we're gonna pick on anybody, it's got to be Giancarlo because he's cheering for
Then Carl's
Pittsburgh.
spoiled.
It was like Mario Lemieux, Yarmer Yager. Am I missing anybody? Paul Coffey. I mean, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin. I could go on forever, really, with the amount of players that they've
Yeah,
had.
but Pens aren't winning anything anytime soon. They're done. Like
Please.
they're the complete opposite. They're going one way and Habs are going another way and the Leafs are just going down their own way down the toilet. So it
Circles?
doesn't make a difference. Yeah, pretty much. They're going around in circles, right?
Well,
So
the
who
Pens will
knows?
meet you there, and then we'll come out of the circle, meet the Habs where they are.
Good stuff, boys. All
Well,
right.
to give you guys all one reason to throw up before we head out is Brad Marchand just scored.
Oh shit!
Hey, good for him.
You're kidding me.
That team locked up a playoff spot.